The United Kingdom has a proud history on the world stage. We helped defeat tyranny in 2 world wars and communism in the Cold War. We have shielded the most vulnerable from Kosovo to Sierra Leone. We helped liberate millions from the shackles of oppression and exported democracy, tolerance, and justice around the world. In the process, Britain, alongside our allies, ushered in a period of peace and prosperity across our continent, unparalleled in its history. Today, our armed forces continue to uphold this proud tradition. They're keeping us safe across the world. Our pilots are destroying terrorist targets in Iraq and Syria and policing Eastern European skies against the increasing threat from Russia. Our soldiers stand sentinel with our NATO allies in Estonia and Poland to deter this threat. We're strengthening the security of Afghanistan and South Sudan, helping establish stability and giving democracy the chance to grow and to flourish. Our sailors are countering international piracy, policing our waters and securing safe passage for the ships that support our global trade. Beneath the waves, our nuclear submarines go undetected as submariners on patrol every day of every year, providing our ultimate defence against the most deadly dangers to our way of life. In the last few weeks alone, our forces have provided vital assistance in the wake of Storm Emma and are now using their expertise to assist the ongoing criminal investigation following the horrific attack in Salisbury. I want to thank each and every one of them for the dedication and commitment that they have shown our nation. Continuing to deliver for the armed forces is imperative, especially in a world where the threats are growing. When it comes to non-state actors, we're seeing a generational shift, with terrorist organisations able to access increasingly sophisticated weapons, and state-based dangers are increasing. Back in 2010, we did not believe they posed as a credible threat. With the benefit of hindsight, this can at best be described as naive. China is pushing for superpower status, restructuring the People's Liberation Army, pushing towards the Indian Ocean, and employing sharp power, including military, media, and economic pressure against any challenger. Iran's proxy military presence in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen is well known. North Korea has demonstrated an active global cyber capability, while its nuclear actions are destabilizing the international order, flouting decades' worth of non-proliferation treaties. And then there is Russia. At a time when its economy is under pressure, it is still prioritizing military expenditure, investing in highly capable equipment across all domains, including long-range surface-to-air missiles, T-90 tanks, new advanced submarines, long-range precision strike systems, the Iskander ballistic missiles, and a new range of Blackjack strategic bombers. And the new nuclear systems that President Putin recently boasted about in his State of the Nation address. What is also clear is that the Kremlin is ripping up the international rule book, using its growing hybrid capabilities to subvert, undermine, and influence countries around the world. Its cyber operations are active and brazen. It uses social media to muddy the waters and spread confusion. Last year, Russia's military intelligence organization directed the NotPetya ransomware activity, overwhelming systems in Ukraine from its power grid to its postal service, and causing hundreds of millions of pounds of damage to companies around the world, including here in the United Kingdom. But Russia is capable of much more. It is already increasingly using proxies to undermine sovereign states. Its involvement in the Ukraine conflict has cost tens of thousands of lives. In Syria, we're seeing a humanitarian crisis where Russia is using private military companies such as the Wagner Group to reduce their liability and limit criticism on the world stage. Meanwhile, Russia is also using its operatives insidiously to interfere in the political processes of other nations. Security authorities have compelling evidence to show Russia was involved in the attempted 2016 coup in Montenegro, just prior to that country's joining NATO. And if we doubted the threat Russia poses to our citizens, we only have to look at the shocking example of their reckless attack on Salisbury. But against this backdrop of threats, we shouldn't forget that our armed forces remain truly world-class, and we're giving them the capabilities to respond. For example, we know the chemical threat doesn't just come from Russia, but from other actors. So we're evolving the capability to meet the danger. I made the decision to offer the anthrax vaccine to our forces at the highest readiness, providing them with vital protections against a deadly danger. And today I can announce that we're building on our world-class expertise at the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory at Porton Down. We're investing £48 million in a new chemical weapons defence centre to maintain our cutting edge in chemical analysis and defence. We've brought together Defence's world-renowned explosive ordnance expertise with chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear specialists. And we're continuing to invest and explore new ways and new capabilities to deal with this threat. More broadly, our armed forces are internationally recognized as having an almost matchless combination of capability and experience, able to field a well-equipped army division with armoured brigades, strike brigades, and an air assault brigade, able to project power at a distance through an expeditionary air group, based on the state-of-the-art Typhoon and the new F-35 Lightning that will soon embark upon our aircraft carriers. Those carriers, in turn, will form part of a hard-hitting maritime task group, including modern destroyers, frigates, submarines, and commando forces. All this, plus the world's best special forces, and some of the most advanced intelligence gathering and analytical capabilities in the alliance. These are all the hallmarks of a serious military nation, able to conduct first night, first strike attacks, with the technology to go into contested air, sea, and land space, to project power at range from the United Kingdom, and make a major contribution to deterring threats, not just in the Euro-Atlantic area, but across the globe. Many of these forces are on operations and missions today. We're making a major contribution to the campaign that has crippled Daesh, where we've helped to train over 60,000 Iraqi security forces, seen the first UK use of offensive cyber in combat, and our Air Force is operating at an intensity not seen in more than 25 years. We're training the Afghan and Nigerian security forces and even the US Marine Corps. And this month, we have deployed HMS Trenchant to the Arctic with the United States Navy on ISEX 2018, confirming our ability to operate under the ice. Our operational experience and prowess is the reason the UK has played an important leadership role in NATO since its formation, and the reason we lead a range of international divisions and operations right around the globe. We're the preferred operational partner for other top-tier Western militaries, particularly the United States and France, who also acknowledge that they too must modernise to stay ahead of our adversaries. But after a long period of relative peace, threats are increasing again. So we have arrived at a profound moment in our history, a crossroads where the choice before us as a nation is simple: to sit back and let events overtake us, or step forward, seizing the moment as we leave the European Union to shape our vision for a bold, more prosperous Britain, a Britain proud of its past and confident of its future, a Britain ready to reassert its right to do global good in a dangerous and unpredictable world, a Britain able to protect our security and prosperity at home and abroad. After all, our armed forces are the face of global Britain, enhancing our international reputation, epitomizing everything that is great about our nation. We talk about soft power, and we must acknowledge the amazing work of the Foreign Office and DFID, but also of business and organisations like the British Council in promoting Britain's values around the world. Our armed forces work with them, delivering aid in the wake of Hurricane Irma, minesweeping in the Gulf, and bringing medical support in the fight against Ebola in West Africa. But let's be clear. Soft power only works because hard power stands behind it, and that is what our armed forces deliver and why they are so important to our future. That's why this is our moment to retain our competitive advantage and invest in hard power capabilities. And that is why we have launched our modernising defence programme. It will make sure that our country can respond to the changing character of warfare and can deter and, if necessary, contest the new threats we face to British interests, demonstrating to potential adversaries that their efforts to harm the United Kingdom are futile and not worth the cost that they will incur. So our modernising defence programme will give us a more productive, more lethal, harder-hitting joint force able to counter conventional threats and deal with the new challenges of asymmetric conflict. Building on our existing plans for the future of our armed forces, it will balance routine, everyday capabilities, vital to fulfilling day-to-day tasks with highly sophisticated new equipment, using technology and different approaches to counter the full range of threats to our security, and to be able to operate freely in all 5 domains of land, sea, air, space, and cyber. It will prioritise game-changing technologies, giving our service personnel the edge in combat. In practice, this will mean taking our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities to the next level, hoovering up information from beneath the waves, from space, from across the increasingly important electromagnetic spectrum, finding out what our enemies are doing in high definition, and providing artificial intelligence, enabling analysis that can stay ahead in this fast-moving world. It will mean accelerating the development of our innovative 77 Brigade, those reservists and regulars who give us the ability to win the information war, so we create and counter the narratives so central to modern conflict. It will mean investing in new, more advanced and more capable armoured vehicles, more drones, as well as stealth fighters and state-of-the-art anti-submarine ships, in new autonomous systems in areas like mine hunting, to enhance the protection that we can provide to the Royal Navy and our NATO allies, and in offensive cyber, developing our capability, working in partnership with GCHQ. Today, I can announce that we'll be spending almost £4 million with Thales and General Dynamics Land Systems UK to deliver the Ajax shot detection system, which can sense enemy gunfire and protect troops using our next generation of armoured vehicle. But we'll be going further, developing and embedding new approaches to warfighting, protecting and enhancing our information networks to give our commanders the edge over our adversaries, and pursuing technological big bets in big data, artificial intelligence, and novel weapons, all the while building innovation and risk tolerance into our thinking, planning, and operating. So that's my vision of a modernised force fit for the future, delivering the hard power to complement Britain's soft power, strong, balanced, and innovative armed forces equipped with cutting-edge capabilities, operating confidently in the new domains of warfare, preparing us for the unpredictable, keeping British citizens safe wherever they are, fulfilling our global ambitions and defending Britain's national interests. Our modernising defence programme will make sure we continue leading in NATO, continue to be capable and reliable contributors to missions led by close allies and partners, but just as importantly, continue to act independently or lead multinational missions when the need arises. And this weekend, I'll be attending a major exercise of a UK-led joint expeditionary force, bringing together the capabilities of 9 nations that allow us to respond more rapidly and pack a more powerful punch in times of crisis. Our modernising defence programme is also about our prosperity. You cannot have prosperity without security. What better illustration of that fact than our iconic hosts here in Filton today, Rolls Royce, the very embodiment of cutting-edge, world-leading technology, one of our largest suppliers of defence aerospace engines, and a driver of local economic growth as an employer of more than 22,000 people across the United Kingdom. Together with thousands of other brilliant British businesses, they form an industry supporting 1 in every 200 jobs in the UK and providing high-quality training and apprenticeships. There's in just over a decade generated more than £73 billion of exports. Our modernising defence programme will support the growth and competitiveness of the defence sector, helping to create and sustain jobs by transforming our partnership with industry. It'll allow us to deliver cutting-edge capability more effectively, bring more small and medium-sized enterprises into the supply chain, encourage greater innovation, and deliver long-term value, whilst we drive a harder bargain for the goods and services that we buy. Since strong defence underpins our nation's prosperity, I've invited Philip Dunn to conduct a review to help demonstrate it is far more than an insurance policy. It's an investment in jobs at home and exports abroad. He understands this sector extremely well and also brings an important independent perspective. This work on the modernising defence programme, delivering the right capabilities for our armed forces, making sure we remain a leading voice on the world stage, supporting economic growth, and creating a stronger, more strategic partnership with industry will be substantially completed by the time of the NATO summit in July, at which point we'll be in a position to share some headline conclusions. I'll be saying more in the weeks ahead about my vision for the armed forces that we want to create. I hope to engage with many of you between now and then and would encourage you to take part in our public consultation over the coming weeks. But let's be clear. After 1990, we believed the world was going to become a safer and better place with every year that passed, just as we believed that there would probably only be one superpower. But as we have seen increasingly clearly over the last few years, the reality of that is rapidly changing. In every continent of the world, there are not just extremists, but states willing to undermine our values, our ideas, and everything that we stand for. To deal with this challenge, we need to ensure that soft power has the hard power to back it up. As we take a new approach to defence in a post-Brexit world, we must work harder to explain why it matters to the nation. When I visited the parachute regiment recently, I was told something that stuck with me. Knowledge dispels fear. So let us not give in to the demons of doubt. Instead, let us be confident, let us be determined, and let us be resolute in our belief. By using all our power, hard and soft, Britain will continue bringing light to a darkening world. Thank you.
Secretaries very kindly agreed to answer questions. We'll do it under the usual policy exchange house rules. No question too outrageous. You just have to state your name and organisation before you do so. Do I? Lady there. Name and organisation.
Larissa Brown from the Daily Mail. Secretary of State, Russia has said today that it's going to expel diplomats from Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I'm just wondering, has the UK got a further package of measures that it could unleash in response to this? And could this include a military response? Thank you.
What we will do is we will look at how Russia responds to what we have done. It is absolutely atrocious and outrageous what Russia did in Salisbury. We have responded to that. Frankly, Russia should go away, it should shut up. But if they do respond to the action that we've taken, we'll consider it carefully and we'll look at our options, but it would be wrong to prejudge their response.
Gentleman there.
Presumably the legal officer of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, has seen what has been privy to some of the intelligence and all basically the services on that Russia's behind this. What do you make of his response? Obviously unequivocal, but some have suggested he's been less than that.
I think that every Tory MP and every Labour MP would probably describe it as somewhat disappointing. There is no doubt where this attack came from. It came from Russia. It is time for the whole country to unite behind the Prime Minister, give her our full support, make it clear as a nation that we stand together. That is what I believe when you sit in the House of Commons and you listen to members of Parliament from all parties on the backbenches. That is what they're wanting to see. Britain standing together against this great threat. That is what we will do. That is the support that we'll offer the Prime Minister. That is what the nation wants to see us doing from all parties.
Gentleman there.
You set out an ambitious vision for defence, but the National Audit Office has already said there are grave concerns about the equipment plan. Where's the money going to come from for this ambitious vision?
Well, what we're doing is we're very fortunate. We do have a rising budget in defence, and we have one of the strongest commitments in terms of investing in our future equipment programme. And of course, as any good organisation does always carry contingency. But what we're doing as part of our modernising defence programme is we're not going to make judgments at the start of it. We're going to look at the threats. We're going to look at the capabilities that we actually need to deal with those threats. And actually, when we reach those conclusions, that is when we have to have the national discussion and the national debate as to how we take our defence forward and making sure that we have the capabilities to deal with the increasing threats that this nation faces.
Lady there.
Deborah Haynes from The Times. Russia has kind of been mocking us in the wake of Theresa May's announcement, you know, sort of disdain and sarcasm, and the Russian embassy feed sort of minus 23 degrees. What do you say to that response? And secondly, is there a chance, we've got obviously Mark Sedwell speaking to the NAC today, is Britain thinking about potentially invoking Article 4 in response to this?
What we want to do is we want to work with all of our international allies, the United States, France, Germany, our European NATO allies, our friends in Australia, New Zealand, make sure that we speak with a united voice as one, condemning this atrocious act that Russia has committed on our soil. And we have to be very careful in terms of the actions that we take. They've got to be thoughtful and they've got to be calibrated, and ultimately they've got to have effect against Russia that has, in essence, launched this attack upon us. But I don't think what we should be doing is we should be rushing to do too much too rapidly. We've got to make sure that everything we do is so incredibly considered and has a real impact and effect on those people at the very top of a Russian regime that have decided to cause this nation harm and to act in such an irresponsible and dangerous manner.
Gentleman there, second row.
Thank you, Secretary of State. Jonathan Beale, BBC. How would you describe relations with Russia at the moment? Would you say this is a new Cold War? And then secondly, you've made this decision to vaccinate British troops against anthrax. Some people will probably be alarmed at that. Can you just explain why you've made that decision?
So, on anthrax, I think it's my responsibility as Secretary of State for Defence to make sure that I give our armed forces every protection that they possibly need. So giving our high readiness forces the opportunity to have anthrax vaccinations is very important. It's a voluntary decision, but I think it's my duty to give them every protection possible. Sorry, what?
Yes, Cold War.
Cold War. Well, let's face it, relations ain't good, are they? Russia has, in my view, made a deliberate political decision in terms of what they did in terms of attacking Britain. And it's often described as a cool war that we're entering in. I would say it's feeling exceptionally chilly at the moment.
Gentleman there.
Thank you. I'm Ben Glaze, Daily Mirror. In your speech, Secretary of State, you said that the 2010 defence cuts were naive. Others would say they were quite a lot worse than that. How damaging do you think they were, both to the capabilities of our armed forces and in terms of the message they sent to our enemies?
I would hate for the Daily Mirror to misquote me. Actually, I said its assessment of the fact that state-based threats no longer existed was naive. I think that was an incorrect assessment. There were state-based threats. They weren't as obvious as they are now. If I had stood here 2 weeks ago and said that Russia had the capability and an intent in order to launch an attack, a nerve agent attack, on people who are going about their business in a city here in the United Kingdom, you would have said I was scaremongering, I was being alarmist. This is what they've done. The whole field of warfare and conflict is changing. You're seeing actually them doing and operating in different ways. They are not holding back. You see what they're doing in Syria. You see what they're doing in the Ukraine. They're effectively invading independent nation states and not caring about international reaction. Actually, we should care about this. We should be bothered about how nations are operating. Britain has always had an amazing position in the world. We actually care about other nations. We care about our security. And actually, we've got to open our eyes to the fact that people are willing to do so much more than they've ever done in the past. And we've got to be ready for those threats. And our armed forces, we see it every single day of every single week, how they step up to the mark more than anyone else. And actually, as a Secretary of State, if you do not bang the drum for them, if you do not actually try and do right by them, if you do not make sure that we're doing everything we can do, so when they are protecting us, they have everything that they need to do the job, frankly, I would not see me doing my job properly.
Final question, gentleman there.
Quentin Letts, Daily Mail. How much do you itch to get your mitts on that enormous foreign aid budget?
foreign aid plays a very important role in terms of delivering soft power to right around the world. But I have to admit, I do have great ideas of how I could spend an extra 13 or 14 billion pounds. You know, I think all Secretaries of State for Defence have amazing imaginations when it comes to spending money, but that is why we always have Chancellors in order to constrain them. Thank you.
Secretary of State, thank you. Very grateful to you for coming here to us today. Also, particular thanks to Rolls Royce for letting us hold this in this temple of British ingenuity and engineering. Please join with me thanking Secretary of State, and thank you all for coming today.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.